The schedule is actually it's up to Steve. He's the moderator, and I think selection and budget were last. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for coming tonight. Deeply appreciate the turnout. And this is, of course, Tufton Borough's Candidates Night. And I'm happy to say that we're following in the footsteps of the earlier Tufton Borough Association. I believe that these candidate nights go back at least 40 years and may actually push 50 years. And I just say that this is one of the main events that the Tufton Borough Association is known for, in addition to the Tufton Borough Times. So I appreciate the turnout. I'd like to give you an update. Perhaps a number of months ago, a special issue was sent out, and you may have seen it. Hopefully you did. It was in green paper, and it was looking for fundraising for the Conservation Commission's Great Meadow Conservation Project. I'm happy to report to you that we've raised over $9,000 from that alone. And in addition to the $6,000 the Tufton Borough Association pledged, there's $15,000. In fact, I've been informed today another donation came in this afternoon. So it's kind of amazing to me how much that those letters keep niggling people and reminding them that we are doing some conservation-related work in town. In talking over with the chairman of the Conservation Commission and telling him that it looks like there's 15,000, he just smiled and said that I'll spend at least 20,000 of that. I said, okay, Steve, we'll talk about it later, but it's going to be very great for all of us when we can walk down and take a look at the Great Meadow. And I think it'll be a view, if you haven't been there before, that you really didn't know existed in Tufton Borough. And to think there's an aquifer underneath it that's fed from the Ossipes, it's all the more special a place. Lastly, tonight's Candidates Night is going to be moderated again, thanks to the courtesy of Steve Brinzer. And I'd like to just remind everybody that this is basically a meet and greet. It is not a debate. So, although we're a small town and most of us know everybody else, this is not a chance for everybody to start throwing brickbats back and forth at one another. This is a chance for you to go ahead and ask questions, what the priorities might be, and just hear from the candidate themselves. Again, thank you for coming, and with that, I'll turn it over to Steve Brinzer.
Thanks, Mark. If you will start out our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to keep our meeting this evening fairly informal. I have two ideas that I'd like to pursue. One is keep in mind this is not a forum, it's not a debate. We would like to have interaction with the audience, however. It's your opportunity for you in the audience to learn more about each candidate. And it's also an opportunity for the candidate to share a little about yourself, your thoughts on the direction of the town, and why you want to be elected to the position. For candidates in uncontested races, I will simply introduce you and ask that you stand. For the candidates that are in contested races, I'd like you to make a few brief introductory remarks, followed by a question and answer session. To maintain order, I ask that those in the audience with questions wait until I have acknowledged them before speaking. Just raise your hand like we did in school. That'll be an easy way to do it. Those with questions, please tell us your name and where you live in town. In fairness to each of the candidates and to the audience, I'd like to limit our candidate discussion to about 10 minutes, give or take. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. So with respect to the first people on the list I have for tonight are school board candidates, and I'm not sure if any of them are here. Although Gordon did share with me that Charlene Seibel is down with the flu, and she felt she would rather not share that with any of us, so she's not here tonight. I don't know about the other. Wendy Fenderson, and Randy Walker as moderators. I don't know. They're not here anyway. Under the town office candidates, supervisor of the checklist is Christopher Rule, and I don't see him here. Library trustee, we have Paul Matlock. Paul, if you'll stand, say hi everyone. Cemetery trustee, actually we don't have a candidate, so I'm sure that if anybody's interested, then please let us know, or so we can have a candidate for that position. Trustee of the trust funds, Peter Schlutsky.
Yes.
Well,
Tax collector, we have Jackie Rollins. I know Jackie's not going to be here tonight. Road agent, Jim Bean. I think he's out getting ready for the next big snow. Town clerk, Heather's overworking, so obviously she's not here this evening. Moderator, we have Dan. He's front and center. You all know him. Okay, now we move on to the contested positions. We have, for the budget committee, 2 positions are open, and we have 3 candidates. So I'm going to start with Gary Shahanes as the first candidate for budget. If you, I don't know if you want to sit or stand, whatever you feel comfortable.
I'll stand. It's fine. Pardon my wife's glasses, but I forgot mine.
They look good on you.
Beg your pardon?
They look good on you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, as some of you may know, I was on the budget committee about 5 years ago. I think I made some contributions at that time. I've missed it. I'd like very much to be re-elected. Let me say that no matter who is on the budget committee or who is a selectman, we're going to be very well represented because you guys got a lot of experience, and all the people that are on the budget committee and who are selectmen are very dedicated to this town. I think basically the budget committee's been doing a good job. What I did is I spent the last couple of days going over annual reports and looked for some trends that I could identify based on my prior experience with the budget committee, and also the presentation that I just heard a short while ago concerning the budget for next year. Clearly, we're in a position where the overall trend is to spend more money. I also feel that this, in a lot of ways, is probably going to be unavoidable for us as long as the town has the political will to maintain equipment and personnel, and also going to a new police facility. I think job number 1 for the budget committee is going to be to keep us, in a relative sense, being known as a low-tax town. But I also think that from a historical standpoint, we are going to see taxes and spending rise. I want to just point out where some of the increases or the pressure for increases is coming from, at least based on what I can determine. First of all, for many years, this town enjoyed rather generous budgeting, and we've also enjoyed a staff that has significantly underrun the budget in the following year by as much as $112,000 in 2015, but that's been declining, and it's gone down to $64,500 in 2019. This, of course, is also a feeder of the unassigned fund balance. And at the same time, for the past couple of years, we have been adjusting the tax rate by tapping into that. So obviously, we're unable to replenish it as much as we used to be because it's tougher and tougher to spend less. And I also think that the budgeting has become tighter and tighter. The other area that's presenting not a stress, but a pressure to spend more money is for capital equipment expenditures. As you know, the CIP progression of what's acceptable for capital spending is based on a 2.5% slope. And if you look at the scatter diagram that is associated with that, you'll see that in some years we're quite a ways above that, and other times we're a little bit below, but in general we're above it. To give you some idea of what's going on there, in 2020, we're recognizing that there's $942,000 of capital expenditures that have to be managed. The capital expenditure line only permits 871, so that's an 8% increase right there. Going to 2024, and I'm looking at the CIP report to get these figures. Let me go back to 2023. They're forecasting 1,068,000, whereas the acceptance line would be 936. That's a 14% increase. So that's a pressure, and it has to be dealt with every year, and it's causing our spending to go up. I mentioned a minute ago about the unassigned fund balance. In 2015, we had $113,000, which was just a little under 10%. In 2019, excuse me, let me back up. I'm looking at the wrong figures here. In 2015, we had an unexpended fund balance of $1,233,000, which was roughly about 11% of our general fund operating expense. In 2018, it's $862,000, or 6.9%. Now, both of those figures are well within the range of what we should have, and I don't take any issue with spending it, but I'm just trying to let you have an idea about these figures because they are creating a pressure on our spending. At some point, we're going to not be able to tap into that fund to help with the tax rate. And at the same time, because we're not underrunning our budgets any longer, we're not feeding that fund from year to year. The biggest problem that we have is a lot of our equipment requires replacement on a schedule, and that's becoming more expensive, and it's hard to live up to it. And then, of course, the big elephant in the room is going to be the police facility. I personally understand what we're trying to do. I'm going to work towards supporting it, but it's going to take some very careful management. And also, it's going to take some finessing because it's got to be accepted by the voters at large. Because of all of that, I see taxes perhaps being in a position to go up in 2021, 22, and 23. And hopefully they might level off after that. Now, what to do about all of this? Well, the first thing we got to do is try to look at what the biggest drivers are in our operating budget. Am I going on too long here?
Kind of getting there.
Okay, I'll move along. The biggest budget drivers we have for 2016 to 2020, our costs for highways and roads have gone up 45%. The transfer station has gone up 41.1%. Now, these are just operating budget requests. They're not in terms of expenditures. Direct salaries have gone up 15.4%, and health insurance 35%. These are rather significant increases, and they obviously have to be looked at. Working backwards on that, I just want to make a comment about the salaries and the and the benefits. I personally am a person who likes to put salaries before bricks and mortar. I don't think that the 35% increase in benefits is insignificant. It is significant. But on the other hand, it's not a number that's terribly different than what a lot of companies and other organizations have faced. I've heard it before that we need to keep our benefits and salaries up so we don't lose our employees. But I do think that we've got to establish some time out in the future, a certain date, beyond which new people coming in are not going to have the same benefit package that we presently give our present employees. There's nothing discriminatory about that. These are new people who would come in who aren't even identified yet, and they would make their decision whether to work for us based on their eyes open decision at that time. But for the time being, I think we need to try to take care of our employees as much as possible. I would also advocate that we try to flatline the budget as much as possible. That all of the money that we save in budgeting hopefully will help us take care of things like the police facility and the replenishment of equipment. If we keep on compounding an increase year after year, and the percentage increase is applied to an ever-growing amount of money, as you can see, it's not a straight line. It goes more like this. And before you know it, we're going to have some real problems. What I would like to do is to see us go forward with the police station and do it in a way that we're well poised to return to better times when that's past us. In the meantime, I don't think we have any choice but to face these things and try to deal with them prudently on the budget committee. That's what I'll try to work towards. Thank you very much.
Now, before you go, does anyone have any questions? Try to make this interactive to the extent we can.
Good.
All right. There's the man.
Listen.
Okay, the next speaker will be Gordon Hunt. Gordon is an incumbent.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Gordon Hunt, I'm running for my second term on the budget committee. I have been chairman for the last 2 years. I just, Gary had a lot of very good highlights about what ongoing issues that the town has, but I want to speak for just a moment as to my philosophy for the budget committee. I've always felt when I ran it initially, and I still do today, that we are an advisory committee to the selectmen. I never felt that, from my experience at least, we should be micromanaging the budgets as presented from bottom-up budgeting, which is what we do. Staff going to selectmen presenting to us. We are the other set of eyes and this other set of ears, and hopefully asking cogent questions to the selectmen as to how the budget's being developed. Gary did a very nice job putting in the synopsis form the issues that we're facing as far as increases concerned, dealing with CIP report and the potential for new police facility. I think now that we're going to be able to look at the police facility with a fresh set of eyes, because heretofore, before the library new building did not pass, and now we're adding on to the existing library, we're going to be able to, we can now look at it as a new building rather than trying to make everything work around the old structure of the library. By and large, we work in a very collegial situation with the selectmen. However, this year, we did have one issue that came up that did not pass initially, and that was in the, as far as the benefits package. The town of Tufton Borough has a marvelous benefits package, which in my opinion, and other members of the committee initially, it really is an untenable situation going forward, and so that after town meeting this year, we are going to be reaching out to other towns of similar size, not trying to duplicate a past study that had been done years ago, but looking at towns of similar size to see what their benefits package are, to see how we are lining up, because it's really a situation I don't think is going to be able to work going forward. It's 100% funded by the town, there's no employee contribution, and we just don't feel it works in the real world as we see it today. If we're wrong, fine, we're wrong, but at least we want to do the work that's going to be able to go to say, okay, this is what we've done, looking at other communities of our size, and then present that to the selectmen so they can go forward with their planning. And other than that, there's not a whole lot I can tell you. It's a good job, it's a needed job for the community, I enjoy it. And I do like to do it again, I appreciate your support.
Anyone have any questions for Gordon? Thank you, Gordon.
You all?
The other candidate for Budget Committee is Guy Pike. Guy is also the incumbent.
Well, as I come to the end of my first term in the Budget Committee, I'd like to say I have learned a whole hell of a lot about what it takes to financially run a town. And I've changed my opinions quite a bit on several items, favorably, I think. I do have a rather balanced voting record. I didn't vote 100% yes or 100% no. Gordon and Gary have basically stolen any bit of thunder I might have. Except for the fact that throughout my term, I've been able to post the results and the goings-on of the Budget Committee on the Tufton Borough Free Speech Forum so that a lot of people actually get to see what's going on. People have come to me with questions because I did that, and I was able to answer them, and I've been providing some folks with paper copies of some of the things we had so that they didn't have to get to the town office and pay 15% for a copy of that. I'd really like to be able to continue to do that, and we'll see what happens. Thanks.
Anyone have any questions for Guy?
How do you feel about the health insurance situation?
Truthfully?
Yeah.
We are, well, there was I think it was called the Cadillac program back during the Affordable Care Act era, I'll call that. We certainly were a Cadillac town. When I looked at the Thornton report, which Gordon had mentioned again for about the 80th time, but recently, in Mr. Thornton's report, it does show that other towns require their employees to contribute some to their premiums, and we know that the county and state things do that too. Yes, we can't just cut our people right off now. Going forward with new employees, I think that's a very feasible thing to do. Is that?
Can you also look at changing the level of, whether it's deductibles or things like that?
It can be looked at. These selectmen have presented us with a number of programs that were possible, and the one that they chose, which is very reasonable, and also trying to keep the costs down. We do have a reimbursement account that helps the people with their deductibles. It's not totally 100% for everyone, but it does help them in that way.
Okay. No, I'd hate to see us lose anyone because of some drastic change. I totally agree.
I'm not seeing anybody failing real soon. Let's put it that way. That help you out?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
One more.
Oh, look up. He's two more.
You're running for selectmen and budget committee.
Yes.
Would you keep both jobs?
I'm not allowed to.
Oh.
I would relinquish the budget committee position, but in light of that fact, when it came time for the selectmen to decide who would be the representative, I would point out that if I was to win this position, that the people actually thought I should be there and that I should be the selectmen's representative to the budget committee. And we'd go from there. I'm sure that would
Okay.
require a lot of conversation. Dan?
Dan Bonner from Melbourne Village. Guy, I was looking over the state budget form. I think it's the MS 737. Is
Yes.
the one? And I noted that it was signed by most of the budget committee, but it was not signed by you.
Yes, that's
Is there a
correct.
reason for that, or was
Yes,
it just
there
not
is.
here?
If you read the caption before the signatures, it says that, to the best of my ability, I'm verifying that this information is correct. Due to the privacy acts that we have, I'm not provided with information that allows me to do that to what I consider the best of my ability, so therefore I don't sign it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Guy.
These folks didn't give their names.
Oh, I am so sorry. My name is Marcia McCracken, and I'm a resident in Tufton Borough, we live in Hidden Valley.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, moving on. The last contest where there are actually multiple candidates is the selectman position. We have Chip Albee, who's the incumbent, and Guy Pike, who is the, would like to be. So I'm going to start with Chip. You'll stand up and chat a little bit about how you see things going.
Okay. Thanks for coming out. My name is Chip Albee. I'm just finishing up my 6th year as selectman. The first 3 were in the beginning of this millennial period. I guess I have some disagreements with what Gary was saying about the budget. I have a few disagreements about what Gordon and Guy have said, but it's been a pretty collegial effort. The budget increase has only been 1.6% on the operating budget. The undesignated fund balance, I believe, is somewhere in excess of $900,000 right now. A couple of things that we did during my tenure was made a real effort to make the library a one payment plan and not get into this debt service that the town seems to have gotten into. So working with the library trustees and their great fundraising effort and eliminating some things from last year's warrant, we were able to fund that library with one payment. Our goal with the police station is to do the same thing. We're going to be asking the town to put a little more money into the capital reserve account this year. We're working with the Department of USDA, thank you, on a grant for up to 35% of that facility for security, homeland security, et cetera. So our hope is that when that finally comes up to a vote at the town to build it, we'll be doing it with just one warrant article for some few $100,000 at the most. So it may not be in 2021, it may be in 2022, but we're working forward towards that. A couple of other things that we've been faced with is the Wolfboro Rapid Infiltration Basin. So we've had to monitor the 19 Mile Brook. We're going to continue that. We felt at the end of this monitoring period that we hadn't had as good a report as we needed. We need to adjust the science, but our concern overall is to protect 19 Mile Brook, but also 19 Mile Bay, the beach, etc. We also joined up, and I'm the selectman member for Carroll County Broadband, and you're going to be asked at town meeting, I hope, we'll have the petition ready, to sign a petition if you're a member of the New Hampshire Electric Co-op to change the wording of their mission statement to include having access to those poles for fiber optic cable. We've got pretty much every town in the county invested in this project. There's some federal money available. Sandwich is a little ahead of us in that they've actually done a full survey on the town for how much it would cost to put cable to all houses. We've met with a couple of different providers, and from my perspective, I'm not satisfied with what they're presenting us. But our goal is to try to get high-speed internet to every house in town. That's really going to provide us with the ability to attract young families that need to work from home, to make it our current citizenry have access to the internet. It could, I'm not a real technophobe, but we have some in the audience. It could eliminate your cable bill, for instance, or your phone bill. So there's a number of things we're working on there. Our expectation is for this fall to try, I think, and just to get back to the budget for a second, I have a tendency not to look at individual items as hard as some of my friends do. There was only a $6,000 decrease in our employee health insurance this year through our negotiations. So the cost of our healthcare for our employees went down. But I tend to look at the total picture, and by underspending some of the budgets more than maybe Gary would like, and building up the reserve, I'm sure that we can have a
I'm
flat.
sorry, he's going right up to your collar. He's driving me crazy.
Like my cats did. I left a mouse on my chair tonight.
That was, I don't know if anyone else saw it, but yes.
Anyway, I tend to look at the whole budget. The whole budget went up a couple of percent, or a little less than 2%, 1.6%. It is a balancing act. The whole process is a balancing act. And we have, as with every board in the town, it's trying to reach some form of consensus. And that takes a certain type of personality and certain agreements. We've disagreed on any number of things. I had to spend 20 minutes convincing Lloyd of the wrongness of his position just the other day. We've been able to do it with a collegial attitude, and hopefully if any of you watched us on TV, we haven't shocked you too much. But I'm running again, and I told Gordon that if I win again, the next budget presentation is going to have a $20,000 payroll line for the selectmen, because there's just way too much work involved in this job.
Excuse me, I'm listening carefully. No, I don't hear hell freezing over quite that.
That's me. That's what you
Thank you.
get.
Thank you, Chip. Are there any questions for Chip?
One at a time.
Go ahead,
Phillips from Hero Lake. I think having served 3 terms on the budget committee, I think it's terrific. We have people who will give their time and their intelligence to this. So I think it's great for you. It's great for all the people who've done that. And everybody should try it, by the way. My question would be for anybody running for selectman. I'd like to know what are the 3 concerns that you have going forward. What are the 3 concerns that you feel need to be addressed that are of concern to you?
All right, I tend not to operate under those premises, but the 3 major topics.
It's good, you should try it.
Well, the 3 major topics I think that we need to focus on are the road study that we did, including the culvert study. We need to work on how we're going to expand that budget to accomplish that, and that's going to impact other budgets down the road. The next one's 19 Mile Brook. I don't know that we can avoid that. And then on a positive note, or a concern note, if you will, as we look at the police facility going forward, that needs to be a 21st century police facility. We need to have solar. We need to have super insulation. I told the police chief at Monday's meeting, he needs to start looking for electric cruisers. We need to start making an effort to move ourselves forward into the current millennium.
I'm glad to hear what you said about the roads. There's no question I
Well,
will.
if
When
it's
I was
a
on the
tough
budget
time of
committee
year,
for many years, I was proposing it, and somebody said, you mean the state roads or the, no, the local roads here. And for many, many years, we budgeted the same amount, year after year after year, regardless of when asphalt prices went up or when they went down or whatever. So I'm very pleased to hear that you're.
You can't do that without impacting other budgets, or you
That's
do
right.
what Gary said, it just starts exploding.
That's right.
Guys.
Go ahead.
Glenn Cordelli, Winter Circle Farm Road. I would ask both candidates the same question. During the past couple of years, one of the most, let's say the hottest topics has been the swap shop. Could you explain your view on what happened with the closing of the swap shop and the opening and now a volunteer swap shop?
Yeah, we needed to get more citizen involvement in the swap shop. It wasn't being effective, it wasn't being utilized correctly. I know my opponent has an opinion about how many hours should be involved in that and who should be running it. There are only so many hours you can request out of your employees, and that's going to be what you get. So, are we going to expand the employee base of the town, create other town employees with benefits that we have to budget for? I was against doing that, and I'm going to continue to be against doing that. I think having the volunteer effort has worked wonderfully. It can only be open during the times that the transfer station's open, just from a management standpoint. And as far as being open all year, I don't know that you're going to get volunteers out there in the middle of the winter to stand, and I don't know if there's enough activity there to generate or to warrant it. But if the committee wants to come forward with a change of hours or operations, I would certainly welcome that discussion. I didn't see it as big an issue as others did.
Guy?
Yes, the last tax bills came out and people saw, although the tax rate went down, a lot of their actual payment went up. Now, we've been doing the 5-year plan where 20% of the town is assessed each year until we've done the whole town. Was that assessment just like kept record of and then handed in one big lump to the town, or as 20%, those 20% of people, did their assessment go up that year, and then the next 20%, or was that done in one lump sum after a 5-year assessment plan? Do you know?
Okay, every year a certain portion of the town is reevaluated.
Right.
Concurrent to that, DRA, the Department of Revenue Administration, works out a formula as to how close to 100% valuation is our tax rate. So we were running, or had run at times during the last 5 years, as low as the high 70s or low 80% range, which means that you needed a 20% gain in the tax rate or the valuation to come back up to 100%. That major change happened this year, so there was a reevaluation, but there was also the rate going down because of that. And some people's property went up. I'd be happy to explain anybody's tax bill. I've talked to a couple of people who have confused the amount of increase that their value went up with the amount of taxes they went up. So it's...
Well, you've explained what I needed to know.
We have little control over what the state requires.
Right.
Max?
What do you have control over
We have control over the local town budget.
in terms of taxes? In terms of the tax rate?
In terms of the tax rate,
Yeah.
we have control over the local town budget, the operating budget, and the warrant articles. And we have control over the undesignated fund balance as far as what we can take out of that to try to moderate any tax increases.
Do you have control over the local tax rate?
Over the local tax rate,
Just the municipal rate?
we have control of the municipal rate to the extent that we create budgets, which is going to create a tax rate. But we also have an undesignated fund balance that we can use to pay down that rate. So we do control that.
Did the Granite State News report last fall that the municipal rate actually increased
For last year,
for this year?
for 19,
For 20?
I think that, well, the tax rate's set in October, and that's good until next October. So,
That was a leading question. The Granite State News did report
okay.
that the only tax rate that you have any control over increased.
Mhm.
Is that true or is that false?
I think it's probably true, and I think at
So
last,
just to be clear,
all right.
you raised our taxes.
Just to be clear, Max, if you let me answer the question, we were told at last year's town meeting that if we were going to do the library, 1 year as opposed to financing over 20, there was going to be an increase. That said, once that increase, or once that project was done, the 2020 rate should come back down. And that was the presentation that we were given at town meeting.
So just to be clear,
Sure.
our property values went up. Mine went up by 33%. My tax bill went up by $500. The only tax rate that you as a selectman have any control over is the municipal rate, and you raised it, even though our property values went up as well. Yes or no?
Thank you. Even though we don't have any control over the value of your property. So that went up.
What do you have control over?
I just didn't answer that question before. We have
The
control-
local tax rate, and you raised it. Yes or no?
Okay,
Yes, right?
the tax rate went up, Max. I don't know how
I've
to answer
answered
the
more of a
question.
question and answer as opposed to a debate.
Yeah, I thought we were having
Yeah.
a conversation, but I guess not. Anybody else? Thanks.
Matt, you have any? Matt, are you satisfied? Do you have another question?
I think I made my point, which is that they raised our taxes even though our property values went up.
Okay. Finally, we have Matt White, I guess, the other contestant for selectmen.
Well, my plan has been foiled once again. I came here to ask you folks the questions, not you ask me the questions. And my one question was going to be, would anyone like to present their concerns to me? Whether it be something that needs to be implemented, something that needs to be changed, something that needs to be eliminated, and then I might respond, in what manner do I think the Board of Selectmen can facilitate a solution to your concerns? However, two people have already asked questions of both candidates, so I'll go with those first. Tyler, my three biggest concerns right off the bat are the roads. I think we need a comprehensive plan, and it needs to be adhered to, and it needs to be administered by the selectmen, even though the road agent is an elected official. The selectmen control the budget. We need a police facility, yes. It needs to be modern, of course. It needs to be usable into the future, but it also has to be a reasonable facility. The swap shop, I believe, can be run right inside the building with a couple more benches. It's easy to monitor if you do that. It might end up being a Reader's Digest condensed version of the swap shop. However, it's very easy to monitor when all the superintendent has to do is look out his window, his door there, and look at it, if it's right there where that bench is now in a U shape. Does that answer your question, Glenn? Tyler?
Yes.
Now, would somebody like to present a concern or anything to me, please? Yes, ma'am.
The corner of Ledge Hill Road and 171.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to inch out.
Absolutely.
And I understand that it's a town road and a state road.
Mhm.
And so no one really wants to deal with it. And really what needs to happen is that someone has to say, well, we'll go up and take care of the snow on the corner.
That's a partial solution to the issue. In my opinion, a board of selectmen could approach the lady who owns the house, who is not in particularly good physical condition, does not have a bunch of kids living there anymore, and is letting the place slowly, unfortunately, fall down around her, and approach her about purchasing that house for a certain price. It could be purchased, I'm sure, for a lot less money than we raised to get our library addition, and this is definitely a public safety issue. Now, should she be amenable to that, it would have to go before town meeting, as we know. And that would be my solution to that problem. It could be torn down then, and winter, spring, summer, and fall, everything would be better at the corner.
here upon that one. It'd just be a lot cheaper just to put a mirror on that opposite corner.
That's right.
It would be cheaper. Now,
And it would work.
but that would be in the state right away. Other concerns? Madam?
Could the center lines, or could their lines be abraded there at the corner to alert cars when they're, I've had many near misses with cars clipping, at the, you know.
You speak of something like the rumble strip
Yeah, the
over
rumble
at
strips in the
the
middle,
new,
sometimes.
the wonderful new roundabout?
Yes.
Where they've already had it flip over? Yeah.
Is that something with the town to do?
I believe the town could do that. I would have to talk to the road agent about it, and I'm not sure how that would affect plowing or people's tire mileage or anything else. That was a question, by the way.
Yeah.
The reason I'm running, basically, is that I'm very, very upset with the lack of public participation in our whole process. Many of our committees and boards are screaming for members. Many of our committees and boards are staffed by members who are shaky at best, in my opinion. I think with me sitting in a selectman's chair, that I can draw in some folks that heretofore have had no faith in our process, get more public input, get more people to work with it, and that's why I'm running.
Any other questions for Guy? Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that because you say it's state roads and town roads,
Yes.
that you can't do something as simple as four-way stops.
We already have stop signs
Right.
that do our roads. Approaching the state about that, it can be done. I'm not sure that it hasn't been done already. However, getting the state to do much of anything, as you may know, is a tough game. And I am gonna editorialize on this one. If they spent 1/10 of the money that they put into 93, moving the traffic jam up 2 exits around here, we'd be in a lot better shape.
Molly?
I have a question that I'm not sure who may know the answer. And there may be state laws about this, but it strikes me that it might be, although a change, very useful to have the town meeting before our election. So, because my sense at town meeting is that things are already decided. By the time we get to town meeting, there's not many people show up and almost everything has been decided. Would there be any usefulness or any interest? And I don't even know if it's legal to put town meeting before we have the actual election.
I truly don't know if it would be legal or not. And I'm not, one of my concerns is to get more people out to town meeting, which I think I have the ability to do if I'm in the right position. I really don't know that, I can't answer that. And maybe Dan may know more about that than I do.
It's a little surprising question, but for the record, town meeting begins with Article 1, which is the election of town officers.
There you have it.
That's structurally the way it's done.
Okay.
The town has the ability to continue the town meeting on another day, which is what we do. There are some towns that actually continue the town meeting right after the election, but Article 1 is the beginning of town meeting.
The election? Yeah, okay.
There's your answer.
Any other questions? Thank you, Guy.
I hope you'll notice there's no flies on me.
Whoever brought their pets along with me, take them home. That pretty much concludes our program this evening. Thank you for coming, and please come out and vote.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you, Mark.
I have.
Hey, Mark.